Mind the gap.
This story is based on the true story of Margaret McCollum and her husband Oswald Laurence, whose voice was preserved at Embankment Station by Transport for London in 2013, in memory of all the voices that guide us home.
I kept saying those words over and over as tears streamed down my face. The station guard stared at me, bewildered. He didn't understand. How could he? He didn't know that for 6 months, I'd come to Embankment Station every single morning and never once boarded a train. My name is Eleanor Whitby, and this is the story of how a tube station recording became the only place I could still hear my husband's voice. Sound of the iconic Mind the Gap announcement. Let me tell you why. It started 6 months ago. Every morning I would wake at 6:30, make a pot of tea, put on my coat, and take the bus to Embankment Station. I wasn't going anywhere, you see. I would simply sit on the platform for hours. The Northern Line platform became my refuge, my sanctuary. People rushed past me, businessmen with briefcases, tourists with maps, students with headphones. Everyone was going somewhere. Everyone except me. I would sit on the same bench, the third one from the entrance, the one with a view of the tracks but tucked slightly away from the crowds. Trains would come, trains would go. I never boarded a single one. The station staff noticed me, of course. How could they not? A woman of 61, always alone, always in the same spot, day after day. But I caused no trouble, spoke to no one. I imagine they thought of me as harmless, but rather odd. They weren't wrong. I was odd. Terribly odd, because I was coming to a tube station to hear a voice. Sound of the announcement.
Mind the gap.
That voice. But whose voice was it? And why did it mean so much to me? That's what I need to tell you. His name was Arthur Whitby. Everyone called him Arthur, but to me, he was always Art. We met in 1985. I was 24, working as a librarian at Camden. He was 32, a recording engineer, with a beautiful speaking voice and the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. He used to joke that he fell in love with the way I whispered in the library. "You make Quiet Please sound like poetry, Eleanor," he'd say. We married in 1988, bought a small flat in Wimbledon, had one daughter, Sophie. Arthur worked for London Underground for nearly 30 years, recording announcements, safety messages, platform updates. His voice became part of London itself. Thousands of people heard him every single day, though they never knew his name. Mind the gap between the train and the platform, that was his words, his voice. And for 36 years, that voice was mine too, every morning.
Good morning, my love.
Every evening.
I'm home, darling.
Every night.
Sleep well, Eleanor.
We grew older together, Art and I. Our daughter grew up, moved away, started a family of her own, but we had each other until we didn't. Arthur died on a Tuesday morning in March. Sudden, unexpected. One moment he was there, chuckling at the crossword. The next, he was gone. Just like that. 36 years, over in an instant. I don't remember much about the funeral. Sophie was there, of course. Her family. Friends. Colleagues from the underground. Everyone said lovely things. Called him a good man, a dedicated professional. But they didn't know him. Not really. They didn't know that he sang in the shower, that he always burned the toast, that he cried watching old films when he thought I wasn't looking. They didn't know. My Art. After the funeral, everyone went home, and I was alone. Truly, completely alone. The silence was unbearable. About a month after Art died, I had to go into central London. An appointment at the solicitor's, sorting out the will. I took the tube, the Northern Line, from Wimbledon to Embankment. And as I stood on the platform, waiting for my train, the announcement plays.
Mind the gap.
I heard it, his voice. Arthur's voice. I froze. completely froze. People pushed past me. The train arrived. Doors opened, closed. The train left. I didn't move. I just stood there, listening, waiting. The announcement plays again.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
It was him. It was definitely him. That particular inflection on mind. After 36 years of marriage, I knew that voice better than my own. I missed my appointment that day. I stood on that platform for 3 hours, just listening. Every time a train came, I heard him. Every time.
Mind the gap.
It was the only place I could still hear him. The only place he was still there. So I started coming back. Every morning, I would wake at 6:30, make my tea, put on my coat, and I would go to Embankment station, not to travel, not to go anywhere, just to listen.
Mind the gap.
I found my spot, the third bench from the entrance, and I would sit there for hours, waiting for trains, waiting to hear him. The announcement plays.
Mind the gap.
Sometimes I would close my eyes and pretend he was there beside me. I could almost feel his hand in mine, almost hear him say,
Shall we go home, love?
but then the moment would pass. The train would leave, and I would wait for the next one. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. 6 months I did this every single day. The staff began to recognize me. I could see them whispering, "There's that woman again. What's she doing? Should we say something?" But they never did. And I was grateful because I couldn't explain it to them. How could I? How could I tell them that this recording, this simple, automated safety announcement was all I had left of my husband? But then everything changed. It was a Wednesday morning, 6 months to the day since Art had died. I arrived at my usual time, sat on my usual bench, but something felt different. The platform seemed busier, louder, and then I heard it. Different voice.
Mind the gap.
A new recording. It wasn't Arthur. It was someone else. A younger man, professional, efficient, but not Art. I stood up, my heart pounding. Another train came, new voice again.
Mind the gap.
Not him. They'd replaced him. They'd replaced his voice. My Art was gone. Again. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I stumbled toward the platform edge, tears streaming down my face.
Madam? Madam, are you all right?
A station guard appeared beside me. Young man. Concerned face. I tried to speak, tried to explain, but all that came out were those 2 words, over and over. The guard, his name was David, sat me down gently.
Madam, what's wrong? Please talk to me.
And finally, I told him everything. About Arthur, about his 30 years with the Underground, about his voice on the recordings, about how I'd been coming here for 6 months, just to hear him. David listened, really listened. Then he said something I'll never forget. Kind voice.
Wait here, please. Just wait here.
He disappeared for 20 minutes. I sat there, trembling, not knowing what would happen. And then he came back.
Mrs. Whitby,
He said,
I've spoken to my supervisor, and we've made a call to head office.
"What do you mean?"
Your husband's recording.
David said gently.
It's still in our archive. They kept it. They're going to restore it. Just for this platform. Embankment. Northern Line.
You mean?
You'll hear him again, Mrs. Whitby. I promise.
3 days later, I returned to Embankment Station. I sat on my bench, the third one from the entrance, and I waited. The train pulled in, the doors opened, and then Arthur's voice.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
There he was, my Art. Gentle, peaceful voice. I still go to Embankment Station, not every day anymore. but often. Sophie comes with me sometimes, with my grandchildren too when they can. We sit together on that bench and we listen to their grandfather's voice. The announcement plays one final time. Warm, grateful voice. And I've learned something important. Love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. Sometimes it lives in a recording, in 3 simple words. Final announcement.
Mind the gap.
In memory of Arthur Whitby, whose voice still echoes through London, the voice she came to hear. They were replacing his voice. Station by station, line by line, his voice was disappearing from London, and I was losing him all over again. By 2010, only one station remained. Embankment. It was 2 hours from my home. 2 buses and a train. Arthur had been a stage actor in his younger years, but when the theatre work dried up, he'd become a tour guide.
Same skills, really.
The old me later. Projection, timing, keeping an audience engaged, and he was marvellous at it. He knew everything: history, architecture, local legends. And he told stories that made even the most mundane facts come alive. But what I noticed most was how kind he was. When elderly Mrs. Patterson struggled with the coach steps, Arthur helped her without fuss. When young Mr. Chen got separated from the group, Arthur found him and made him laugh about it. He noticed people, really noticed them, including me. He told me about his years in the theatre, about playing Prospero in The Tempest when he was 32. I was far too young for the role, he laughed, but I was dreadfully earnest about it. I told him about my work as a librarian, and he listened. Really listened. We were both rather old-fashioned people. He would take the train from Ealing to Clapham every weekend to see me. We'd walk in the park, go to museums, have tea at little cafes. He read poetry to me. Larkin, Auden, Elizabeth Bishop.
Listen to this one, Eleanor.
He'd say, and his voice would transform, richer, deeper, full of emotion. I could have listened to him, read the telephone directory and been perfectly content, and I had never been happier. We bought a small flat in Wimbledon, 2 bedrooms, lovely view of the common. I cut back my hours at the library. We were going to travel, we said, see the world properly. But mostly, we just enjoyed being together. Simple things. Reading the Sunday papers, watching old films, cooking dinner together. Arthur was a terrible cook, mind you. Burned everything, but he always tried. That was the thing about Arthur. He always tried. In 2005, Arthur got an unusual job offer.
Eleanor, you'll never guess. Transport for London want me to record some announcements, station safety messages, that sort of thing.
Why you? I asked. Apparently someone remembered my work in radio years ago.
They want a warm, authoritative voice.
He was quite chuffed, actually. I went with him to the recording session, a small studio in Bloomsbury. Arthur stood at the microphone, headphones on, script in hand.
Right, Mr. Whitby. We'll start with the platform safety announcement.
Arthur cleared his throat, smiled at me through the glass, and then he spoke. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. It was perfect, calm, clear, reassuring, exactly the voice you'd want to hear when you're rushing for a train or feeling anxious about your journey. They recorded several versions, different wordings, different stations. When we left, Arthur was glowing.
Do you know, Eleanor, my voice will be heard by thousands of people every day. Isn't that rather wonderful?
It was wonderful, though at the time I had no idea how important that recording would become. Because less than 2 years later, Arthur was gone. It was January 2007, a Tuesday evening. Arthur and I had just finished dinner. He'd made shepherd's pie well. Attempted to make shepherd's pie. It was rather burnt round the edges, but I told him it was delicious anyway. We were washing up together, him washing, me drying, when suddenly he grabbed the edge of the sink.
Eleanor, I don't feel...
He collapsed. I called 999, did everything they told me, tried CPR, But it was too late. His heart had just stopped. The paramedic said he wouldn't have suffered. It was very quick. That was supposed to be comforting, I suppose. But it wasn't. Because he was there one moment, laughing about his terrible cooking, planning what we'd watch on television, and the next. Gone. Just gone. 3 weeks after Arthur died, I had to go into central London. I can't quite remember now. I took the Northern Line, changed at Embankment. I was standing on the platform, lost in my grief, barely aware of anything around me. Train approaching, and then I heard it. Arthur's voice.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
I froze. Completely froze. It was him. Arthur. His voice. I stood there as the train came and went, tears streaming down my face. People stared. I didn't care. The announcement plays again. Mind the gap. It was as though he was there, right there beside me, telling me to be careful, to watch my step. I missed my appointment that day. I stood on that platform for nearly 3 hours, just listening, waiting for trains, waiting to hear him. And from that day on, I kept coming back. At first, Arthur's voice was everywhere. Northern Line, Bakerloo Line, even some of the DLR stations. I would plan my days around visiting different stations. Monday, Embankment. Wednesday, Leicester Square. Friday, Waterloo. Just to hear him. I know it sounds mad. Perhaps it was. But it gave me purpose. Gave me a reason to get dressed, to leave the flat, to carry on. But then, gradually, things began to change. Sound of a different voice on announcements. Transport for London started updating their systems. New recordings, new voices. Station by station, Arthur's voice disappeared. First it was Waterloo, then Leicester Square, then King's Cross. I felt like I was losing him all over again. By 2010, 3 years after he died, only one station remained. Embankment. It was 2 hours from my home in Wimbledon. 2 buses and a train, but I went anyway. Every week, sometimes twice.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
I would sit on the platform for hours, just listening, waiting for trains, waiting for his voice.
Mind the gap.
3 simple words, but they were all I had left of him. And then I received a letter. It was from Transport for London. Official letterhead, polite, bureaucratic language. Dear passenger, we are writing to inform you that Embankment Station will be undergoing technical improvements in the coming months. This includes the replacement of all automated announcements with our new digital system. They were replacing his voice. The last one, the only one left. I read that letter 5 times, hoping I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't. They were taking him away from me again. And I couldn't let that happen. So I did something I'd never done before. I fought back. I wrote letters to Transport for London, to my MP, to the Mayor's office. Dear Sir or Madam, my husband, Arthur Whitby, recorded the gap announcement at Embankment Station in 2005. He died in 2007. That recording is the only way I can still hear his voice. I explained everything, how much it meant to me, how I travelled 2 hours just to hear him. I never expected a reply, but 3 weeks later, my phone rang.
Mrs. Whitby, this is Nigel Holness from London Underground. I received your letter.
Yes?
We'd like to meet with you. Would that be possible?
They were so kind. Mr. Holness and 2 other managers met me at their offices near St. James's Park. They listened to my whole story, about Arthur, about the recording, about my weekly pilgrimages to Embankment. And then Mr. Holness said something extraordinary.
Mrs. Whitby, we've checked our archives. Your husband's recording is still there, and we'd like to preserve it.
You mean we're going to keep it at Embankment Station, just for you? Crying with relief, I couldn't speak. They gave me something else too. Sound of a CD case opening. A CD, a copy of all Arthur's recordings.
So you can listen at home.
Mr. Holness said gently.
Whenever you need to.
I still visit Embankment Station. Not every week anymore, but often. Arthur's voice. And every time I hear his voice, I smile. People ask me sometimes, don't you find it sad? And I tell them, no, it's not sad. It's beautiful, because love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. Arthur's love lives in that recording. In 3 simple words that have helped millions of people travel safely, and in my heart, where he'll always be. And I learnt that sometimes the smallest thing's a voice, a recording. 3 words can carry the greatest love. In loving memory of Arthur Whitby, 1937 to 2007. His voice still guides us home.
Mind the gap.
I still visit Embankment Station. Not every week anymore, but often. Arthur's voice. And every time I hear his voice, I smile.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
It wasn't him. It wasn't Arthur. I stood there on the platform, my shopping bag slipping from my hand, staring at nothing. They'd replaced him. After everything, after all those years, after all those letters and promises, they'd replaced his voice. And I knew in that moment that I couldn't stay silent anymore. And this is the story of the day I finally found my voice, by refusing to let his disappear. It was a Thursday morning in November, bitterly cold. One of those grey London mornings where you can see your breath. I'd taken my usual route, 2 buses from Wimbledon, then the District line to Embankment. 2 hours, door to door. I'd been making this journey every week for 3 years, sometimes twice a week if I could manage it, just to hear Arthur's voice. I arrived at Embankment at 10:30. Not too busy by then. The morning rush had cleared. I made my way to my usual spot, the bench near the Northern Line platform, 3rd from the entrance, and I waited. The first train arrived at 10:47. I watched the doors open, watched people rush out, watched new passengers board, and then new different voice.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
That wasn't Arthur. I thought perhaps I'd misheard. Perhaps I was on the wrong platform. But no, this was the Northern Line, southbound, the same platform I'd been coming to for 3 years. Another train arrives, same new voice. It happened again. And again. Train after train, the same new voice. Professional, clear, efficient, but not Arthur. Not my Arthur. They'd replaced him, without warning, without telling me. I sat there for an hour, listening to that stranger's voice, feeling something inside me break all over again. And then I made a decision. I stood up. For 3 years, I'd sat quietly on this platform, never causing trouble, never speaking to anyone, just existing, listening, remembering, but not anymore. I walked straight to the station office. A young man sat behind the glass. Couldn't have been more than 25. He looked up as I approached.
Yes, madam. Can I help you?
The announcement, I said. The Mind the Gap announcement. It's changed. He looked confused.
Sorry?
The voice. On the platform. It used to be. It was different. It was my husband's voice. The young man blinked at me.
Your husband.
And suddenly, standing there in front of this stranger, the whole story came tumbling out. About Arthur, about the recording in 2005, about his death in 2007, about how I'd been coming here for 3 years just to hear him. That voice was all I had left of him, and now it's gone. And I don't know what to do. The young man stared at me. For a moment, I thought he'd dismiss me, call security, tell me to leave. But instead, he said,
Wait here, please. Just wait here.
And everything changed. Phone calls. The young man, his name was Daniel, I later learned, made several phone calls. I could hear fragments through the glass.
Yes, sir. She's here now. Yes, her husband. 2005 Embankment. Yes, sir.
I waited for 40 minutes. Other passengers came and went, buying tickets, asking directions. I just sat there, clutching my handbag, wondering what would happen. Finally, Daniel came out of the office.
Mrs. Whitby, I've spoken to my supervisor, and he's contacted head office.
And?
They'd like to speak with you. Would you be able to come to their offices in St. James's?
Now?
If possible, yes.
They've asked if you could come today. I took the tube to St. James's Park. My hands were shaking the entire journey. What if they're angry? What if I've caused trouble? What if they think I'm just a silly old woman? The Transport for London offices were grand. Marble floors, high ceilings. I felt terribly small.
Mrs. Whitby, they're expecting you. 3rd floor. Mr. Holness will meet you.
Mr. Nigel Holness was a tall man in his 50s. Grey suit, kind eyes. He shook my hand warmly.
Mrs. Whitby, thank you so much for coming. Please sit down. Can I get you some tea?
Yes, please. Thank you. He sat across from me, notepad in hand.
Now, Daniel at Embankment told me your story, but I'd like to hear it from you, if that's all right. Take your time.
So I told him everything. About meeting Arthur in 1992. Our 4 years of marriage. His sudden death. About discovering his voice at Embankment. About my weekly pilgrimages. About how his voice had been the only thing keeping me going after he died. I know it must sound mad. An old woman travelling 2 hours just to hear a recording. But that recording, it was him. It was all I had left. Mr. Holness listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I'll never forget.
Mrs. Whitby, it doesn't sound mad at all. It sounds like love.
And that's when I knew something extraordinary was about to happen. Come with me, Mr. Holness said. I want to show you something. He led me down a corridor to a small room filled with filing cabinets and old recording equipment.
This is our archive.
He explained.
Every announcement, every recording we've ever made, we keep them all.
He pulled out a file labelled Station Announcements, 2005. And there, inside, Arthur Whitby. Platform Safety Announcement. Recorded March 2005. You still have it?
We never delete anything, Mrs. Whitby.
It's all here. He pulled out another folder. Inside were CDs, dozens of them.
These are the master recordings. Your husband recorded several versions, different wordings, different stations.
I thought they were gone. I thought when they changed the announcement.
They're never gone.
Mr. Holness said gently.
They're just sleeping.
He selected one CD and held it up.
I'd like to make you a copy of this, so you can listen at home. Would that be helpful? You'd do that?
Of course.
But there's something else I want to discuss with you.
Mr. Holness brought me to a meeting room. 3 other people were waiting. Senior managers, he explained.
Mrs. Whitby, thank you for being so patient with us. We've been discussing your situation.
And one of the women, her name was Patricia, spoke first.
Mrs. Whitby, we want to apologise. The announcement at Embankment was changed as part of a routine system upgrade. We had no idea about your husband's recording. No idea about you. We should have known. We should have checked.
It's not your fault. How could you have known? Mr. Holness leaned forward.
Mrs. Whitby, we'd like to make this right. We've discussed it with our technical team, and we believe we can do 2 things.
What things?
First, we'd like to restore your husband's recording at Embankment Station. It will require some technical work, but it's entirely possible.
You mean?
You'll hear his voice again, on the platform, just as before.
I couldn't speak.
And second, we'd like to give you a complete copy of all his recordings, so you can listen at home, whenever you need to.
I don't know what to say.
You don't need to say anything, Mrs. Whitby. Just keep visiting Embankment. Keep listening to him. That's enough.
And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. 3 weeks later, I received a phone call.
Mrs. Whitby, it's Nigel Holness. I have good news. The work is complete.
You mean?
Your husband's voice is back at Embankment. Would you like to come and hear it?
I made the journey the next morning. Mr. Holness met me at the station entrance.
Ready?
He asked. I think so. We stood on the platform together, waiting for the next train. My heart was pounding. What if it didn't work? What if it wasn't the same? Train approaching, and then...
Mind the gap.
Arthur's voice.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
It was him. My Arthur. Clear, warm, exactly as I remembered. He's back, I whispered. He's really back.
He never really left, Mrs. Whitby.
Before I left that day, Mr. Holness gave me something else. A small package, carefully wrapped. What's this?
Open it.
Inside was a CD case and a letter. Dear Mrs. Whitby, inside this case are all of your husband. Arthur's recordings for Transport for London. Every version, every announcement, every word. These recordings have helped millions of people travel safely across London for many years. But we know they mean something far more important to you. Please accept this with our deepest respect and admiration for Arthur and for you. Yours sincerely, Transport for London. Inside the case were 4 CDs, hours of his voice. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you so much. That was 12 years ago. I'm 80 now. Still living in Wimbledon. Still managing quite well, thank you. I don't visit Embankment as often anymore. My knees aren't what they were. But I still go sometimes. On Arthur's birthday. On our anniversary. And I always sit on the same bench, third from the entrance. Arthur's voice plays.
Mind the gap.
But mostly I listen to the CDs at home. Sometimes while I'm cooking dinner, sometimes before bed, just to hear him, just to remember. People ask me, isn't it sad? Doesn't it make you miss him more? And I tell them no. It's not sad. It's beautiful. Because Arthur never became famous in his lifetime. He never played the West End. Never saw his name in lights. But in the end, his voice became one of the most familiar in London. Millions of people have heard him. Still hear him. He's helped them travel safely, kept them from harm. And for me, he's still there, still telling me to be careful, to mind the gap, still loving me from across the years. And I learned that love doesn't disappear when someone dies. It just changes form. Sometimes it lives in a recording, in 3 simple words, in a voice that refuses to be forgotten. Arthur may be gone, but his voice, his love, still waits for me on the platform, and it always will. Final announcement plays softly.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Thank you for listening. Please consider subscribing to Thursday Story Cafe. By subscribing, you'll be invited back for more gentle stories.